Part 1. Centuries had passed since the war that nearly wiped out the human race. Back then, Earth had been proud and loud, reaching for the stars with ships and dreams, but the galaxy was not kind to newcomers. When first contact turned to conflict, humanity stood alone against a dozen alien powers. They fought hard, but they were outnumbered, outgunned, and outmaneuvered. In the end, Earth burned. Mars cracked. Billions died. The survivors crawled through the ruins, broken and silent. Now the galaxy saw humans as harmless. A quiet species grateful for the scraps of aid the conquered, the loose alliance of spacefaring civilizations, threw their way. Human colonies were small, their ships outdated, their voices rarely heard in galactic councils. Most aliens believed humanity had learned its place. Humble, obedient, and forever in debt. But not all debts are what they seem. On Mars, far from the eyes of diplomats and traders, a team of archaeologists worked in the dust-choked ruins of New Ares City. Buried under collapsed domes and rusted transit tubes, they hunted for relics of the old war. Not weapons or warships, but records, stories, truths the galaxy had tried to bury. Daniel Hayes led the dig. He wasn't a soldier or a politician, just a quiet man with tired eyes and a deep love for history. His grandfather had been one of the last radio operators on Luna before the comms went dark. Daniel had grown up on stories of courage in the face of annihilation, stories no one else wanted to hear. One afternoon, as the red sun dipped behind the Tharsis cliffs, his scanner pinged. Not metal, not rock. Something shielded. Something hidden on purpose. "Over here," he called, brushing dust from a cracked access panel. His team gathered, tools in hand. It took 3 hours to cut through the fused titanium. Inside lay a vault no bigger than a coffin, sealed with a biometric lock keyed to human DNA. Daniel pressed his palm against it. The lock hissed open. Inside sat a single data core wrapped in carbon weave, glowing faintly blue. No markings, no labels, just a small engraving on the side. "We do not forget." Back at the base, they plugged it into a secure terminal. The screen flickered. Then a face appeared. Admiral Lena Cho, last commander of the Earth Defense Fleet. Her uniform was torn. Her eyes were hollow but steady. "If you're seeing this," she said, voice crackling with static, "then we lost. But maybe you're hearing it because you survived. Good. Then listen. During the darkest days when our cities fell and our children starved, some in this galaxy showed us mercy, not out of pity, out of decency. The Velnari hid our refugees. The Zerathi smuggled us medicine. The Morel gave us safe passage through their nebula lanes. We swore an oath not to conquer, not to avenge, but to repay. Every act, every life saved, every kindness given in secret. If humanity rises again, we will honor that debt. Not with words, with action." The recording ended. Silence filled the room. Daniel stared at the screen. The Velnari, he knew that name. Once a proud, peaceful species from the rimward expanse. Now they were scattered, hunted. The Cathari Dominion, a brutal empire of conquerors, had branded them traitors for helping humans during the war. Their homeworld was gone. Their people lived in hiding or in camps. He called Earth immediately. President Elena Ruiz listened without interrupting. She was a woman of few words and sharp instincts. She'd grown up in the refugee camps of Titan, raised on stories of Velnari families who shared their last rations with starving human children. When Daniel finished, she said only, "Send me the core, and pack your bags." 2 weeks later, Daniel stood in a secure chamber beneath Geneva. Around him sat the leaders of Earth's rebuilt military, science, and diplomacy. The data core played again. This time more details emerged, coordinates, encrypted logs, names of Velnari who'd risked everything. Elena Ruiz rose. "The galaxy thinks we're weak because we're quiet. They think we've forgotten because we don't shout. But we remember. And now we act." She didn't declare war. She didn't demand justice. She simply gave an order. "Find them. Every Velnari still alive. Every descendant of those who helped us. And bring them home, not to Earth, but to safety. Under our protection." In hidden shipyards buried in the ice of Europa, dormant engines hummed to life. On the far side of the moon, engineers unlocked vaults containing prototype drives and stealth hulls designed during the war but never used. Humanity hadn't been idle during its peaceful centuries. It had been preparing not for revenge, for repayment. Meanwhile, on the fringe world of Keswick, a dusty, forgotten rock orbiting a dying star, a young Velnari woman named Lyra Tan tended her family's hydroponic garden. Her people lived in fear, always watching the skies. The Kithari patrols came often, searching for rebels, dissidents, or worse, humans. Though none had been seen in decades, the Kithari still used them as an excuse to purge entire villages. Lyra's grandmother used to tell stories of the Star Children, humans who arrived in broken ships, eyes wide with fear, speaking in soft, strange tongues. They were kind, the old woman would say. They shared what little they had. And when they left, they promised they'd return one day. Lyra never believed it. Promises meant nothing in a galaxy ruled by force. But far above Keswick, hidden in the shadow of an asteroid, a small human corvette drifted silently. Its pilot, Maya Briggs, studied sensor readings. She was young, sharp, and fiercely loyal. Her parents had died in the last refugee convoy during the war, saved by a Velnari freighter that took a detour no one asked for. Now she was returning the favor. Her ship, the Dawn Chaser, carried no weapons, only scanners, drones, and rescue pods. Her mission was simple: locate Velnari survivors, confirm their safety, and report back. No contact, no risk. But as she watched Keswick's surface through high-res lenses, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Kithari dropships were descending, not for a routine check. This was a sweep, a purge. Maya's fingers hovered over the comm. She knew the rules: observe, report, withdraw. But she also knew the oath whispered in every human training academy, though never written down. We do not forget. She didn't move. She watched, and recorded everything. Back on Earth, Elena Ruiz reviewed Maya's transmission. The faces of Velnari elders, children hiding in tunnels, Kithari soldiers kicking down doors. Her jaw tightened. She turned to her advisors. "The debt is due," she said. And for the first time in 300 years, humanity stopped asking for permission. The galaxy would soon learn that kindness, when remembered by humans, does not fade. It compounds, and when repaid, it shakes the stars. Part 2. While the rest of the galaxy watched Earth's old ships launch with polite curiosity, no one guessed the truth. Those vessels weren't relics on parade. They were scouts, decoys. The real work happened far from prying eyes in places the Concord had long forgotten. Beneath the frozen crust of Europa, inside hollowed-out asteroids, and deep in the silent void between star systems, humanity's true fleet stirred. Commander Jason Cole stood on the bridge of the Iron Promise, the first of the new Reclamation-class cruisers. The ship was sleek, dark, and built for one purpose: to move unseen, strike fast, and protect the helpless. No bright lights, no loud announcements, just quiet strength. Jason wasn't a loud man. He spoke little, but his crew trusted him completely. He'd lost his younger brother in the final days of the First Contact War, a boy who died because a Velnari medic gave his last dose of antiviral to a human child instead of himself. Jason never forgot that name, Tarek Ven, and now he carried that memory in every order he gave. The fleet had 3 goals: find the Velnari, shield them, and make sure no one dared hurt them again. But they would not act like conquerors. They would act like guardians. Meanwhile, on Keswick, fear thickened the air. The Kithari sweep had left the village shaken but not destroyed. They had taken food, broken tools, and questioned elders for hours. But they hadn't found the hidden tunnel beneath the greenhouse where Lyra Tan had hidden 3 human-descended children, descendants of refugees who never made it off-world. Their eyes still held that old human look, wide, curious, unbroken. Lyra knew it was only a matter of time before the Kithari returned. She begged her council to flee deeper into the Badlands, but the elders refused. "We have nowhere left to run," said Elder Mock, "and if we leave, they'll burn the fields. Starve the rest." Lyra clenched her fist but said nothing. That night she climbed the ridge overlooking the valley and stared at the stars. She whispered the old prayer her grandmother taught her. "If you hear us, star children, come not with fire, but with hope." Far above, Maya Briggs heard none of it. But she saw everything. Her corvette, the Dawn Chaser, clung to the shadow of a passing comet, its systems running cold. She had stayed in orbit for days, watching, waiting. Her orders were clear: do not engage. Do not reveal yourself. But every hour that passed made her stomach twist. She knew what the Kithari did to traitor worlds. She'd seen the archives. Then the alert came. Not from Earth, from the Iron Promise. A coded ping, barely a whisper in the static. It said only, "Prepare. We're coming." Maya's heart pounded. She checked her drones, charged. Her rescue pods ready, her comms locked to fleet frequency. She didn't smile. She just nodded to herself. About time. Back on Earth, President Elena Ruiz met with the conquered ambassador, a tall, feathered diplomat from the Zarathi enclave. He came with warnings. "Your ships are moving in strange patterns," he said, voice clicking softly. "The Cathari are nervous. They say you're arming rebels." Elena sipped her tea. "We're not arming anyone. We're honoring a promise." "A promise from 300 years ago?" the ambassador asked, tilting his head. "Yes," she said. "Some promises don't expire." The ambassador left unsettled. But later that night, a small Zarathi freighter slipped out of Concord space, its cargo hold filled not with trade goods, but with medical supplies stamped with a human symbol, a hand holding a sprouting seed. The human fleet didn't gather in one place. That would be too obvious. Instead, ships emerged one by one from hidden docks, joining in silent formation near dead stars and empty nebulae. No fanfare, no broadcast. Just steel and silence. Jason Cole reviewed the final plan. The Cathari would return to Keswick in 3 days. Intelligence said they'd bring a full strike group this time. 6 warships, 2 troop carriers. They meant to end the Velnari presence there for good. Humanity would meet them, not with 10 ships, not with 100, with exactly what was needed, and nothing more. On the day of the attack, the sky over Keswick turned black with Cathari dropships. This time they didn't ask questions. They fired. Buildings crumbled. Gardens burned. Elder Mock stood in the square, arms wide, shouting in his native tongue, "We are not your enemy." A Cathari officer shot him where he stood. Lyra screamed and ran for the tunnel. But before she reached it, the ground shook. Not from bombs, from something else. High above, the Cathari command ship's alarms blared. "Unknown vessels!" "Emerging from fold space," the sensor officer cried. On the bridge, the Cathari captain laughed. "Humans, let them come. We'll add their bones to our victory wall." But what emerged wasn't a ragged human militia. It was a line of dark, silent cruisers moving in perfect sync. No warning shots, no demands, just action. The lead human ship, the Iron Promise, targeted the Cathari comms array and disabled it with a single pulse. Another ship jammed their troop drop signals. A third launched swarms of tiny drones that latched onto Cathari engines, not to destroy, but to shut them down gently, like putting a beast to sleep. Maya Briggs, still in orbit, released her rescue drones. They streaked down like silver rain, scanning for life signs. Wherever they found Velnari families huddled in ruins, they opened escape pods and guided them upward with soft lights and calm voices speaking in Velnari tongue. Voices recorded from old refugee logs. On the ground, Lyra froze as a drone hovered before her. It projected a symbol, the clasped hand over a broken chain. Then a voice, gentle female speaking her language, "We remember." "Come with us." She didn't hesitate. She grabbed the children and ran toward the light. The Cathari soldiers, confused and leaderless, fired wildly. But human ships didn't return fire. They simply blocked every shot with energy shields, then used tractor beams to lift Cathari troops off the ground and place them gently, disarmed, into containment fields. No one was killed. Not one. Within an hour it was over. The Cathari fleet floated, powerless, their systems locked by human codes they couldn't break. The Velnari were safe aboard human ships wrapped in warm blankets, given water and food. Jason Cole stood on the bridge, watching the last rescue pod dock. He opened a channel to Earth. "Debt repayment 1, he said. "Complete." Elena Ruiz listened from her office. Outside, Earth's cities slept, unaware of what had just happened light years away. She looked at the old photo on her desk. Her mother, standing beside a Velnari woman in a refugee camp, both smiling despite the ruins around them. "Good," she said softly. "Now the galaxy will start to understand." News of the event spread fast. At first, many didn't believe it. Humans acting with such precision, such restraint? But sensor logs from neutral traders confirmed it. The Cathari had been humiliated, not by violence but by mercy. In conquered halls, debates erupted. Some called it a violation of sovereignty. Others called it the bravest act in centuries. The Zarathi envoy quietly sent a message to Earth. "You kept your word. We will remember that too." On the Iron Promise, Lyra Tan met Jason Cole. She looked into his eyes and saw no pride, only quiet resolve. "Why?" she asked. "Why risk everything for us?" He didn't give a grand speech. He just said, "Because someone once did the same for us, and we do not forget." As the human fleet turned toward the next Velnari refuge, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The galaxy had thought humanity was done, broken, tamed, but kindness, when remembered, is a force stronger than war, and humanity was just getting started. Part 13, the rescue on Keswick changed everything. Word spread faster than light through trader lanes and encrypted channels. Humans had acted not with rage but with purpose. They hadn't killed. They hadn't conquered. They had protected, and that confused the galaxy more than any war ever could. On Earth, President Elena Ruiz faced the full conquered council via hologram. The chamber was filled with tall, feathered, scaled, and many-eyed delegates, all watching her with suspicion or awe. The Cathari ambassador, a broad-shouldered brute named Vrax, slammed his fist on the table. "This is an act of war," he growled. "You attacked our fleet. You stole our prisoners." Elena didn't flinch. "Your fleet attacked a civilian settlement. There were no prisoners, only families hiding in gardens. And we didn't attack. We disabled. We rescued. We left your crews alive and unharmed. Check your own logs." Silence followed. Even the Cathari couldn't deny their ships had returned with every soldier accounted for, just confused and weaponless. Then Elena did something unexpected. She played a recording, not of battle, of voices, dozens of them, old, scratchy, some barely audible. A Velnari woman singing a lullaby to a human child, a Zarathi pilot whispering coordinates through static, a Morel elder offering clean water to refugees in a lifeboat, and then Admiral Lena Cho's final message: "Why, we will repay." "This is not war," Elena said. "This is honor." The chamber stayed quiet long after the transmission ended. Some delegates looked away. Others nodded slowly. The Zarathi envoy bowed his head. Even the Cathari ambassador said nothing as he left. Back on the Iron Promise, Jason Cole reviewed new intelligence. The Cathari were regrouping, but they were also scared. They'd expected humans to beg or hide, not to move like ghosts and strike like surgeons. Worse for them, other species were starting to whisper, "Maybe the humans are right." Lyra Tan, now safe aboard the ship, worked with human linguists to translate old Velnari records. She found names, hundreds of them, Velnari who had hidden humans during the war. Many were dead, but some had descendants, scattered, hidden, waiting. One name stood out. Kale Wren, a shipwright who'd built secret compartments in freighters to smuggle human children off occupied worlds. His last known location was the ice moon of Vera 7, now under Cathari control. Jason made the call. "We go to Vera 7. Meanwhile, Maya Briggs piloted the Dawn Chaser toward a different target, a deep space relay station once used by Velnari traders. It had gone dark years ago, but human scouts picked up faint energy spikes. Someone was there. Maybe survivors. Maybe a trap." She approached slowly, engines off, drifting like space junk. Her sensors picked up life signs, 3, maybe 4. All Velnari. No Cathari signals. She sent a drone with a simple message in Velnari script. "We remember Tarek Ven." Minutes passed. Then a reply flickered on her screen. "Tarek was my uncle. Are you real?" Maya smiled for the first time in weeks. "Yeah," she whispered. "We're real." On Vera 7, the situation was worse. The moon was locked in eternal winter, its surface scoured by ice storms. The Cathari had turned an old mining outpost into a detention camp. Not for criminals. For sympathizers. Mostly elderly Velnari who refused to denounce their past. Kale Wren was among them. Now over 200 years old, his body frail but his mind sharp. He spent his days carving tiny human figures from scrap metal, reminders of the children he'd saved. He didn't expect rescue. He expected death, but high above, the Iron Promise and 2 support frigates folded into real space. This time, they didn't wait for an attack. They acted first. Jason's plan was simple. Cut power to the camp's shields, disable comms, send in stealth shuttles. No explosions, no alarms, just quiet extraction. The Cathari guards never saw it coming. One moment, they were warming their hands by a heater. The next, soft pulses knocked them unconscious. Doors unlocked, lights dimmed, and gentle voices guided the prisoners to waiting shuttles. Kale Wren blinked as a human soldier, barely older than the children he once saved, helped him stand. You're really here, he whispered. We said we'd come back, the soldier replied. Back on the ship, Kale met Lyra. They wept together not just for what was lost, but for what was found, hope. But the real surprise came when Kale handed Jason a small data chip. This, he said, is what they were after. What they tortured us for. Inside was a map, not of weapons, not of bases, of every human descendant still alive in Cathari space, hidden in plain sight, living as laborers, servants, or outcasts. Thousands of them, forgotten by the galaxy, but not by the Velnari. Jason stared at the list. His hands trembled slightly. Among the names was one he knew, Mira Cole. His niece, his brother's daughter lost during the evacuation of Luna. Presumed dead. He hadn't known she'd survived, or that she'd been raised in secret by a Velnari family on a Cathari work world. Now he had a new mission. Elena Ruiz approved it immediately. Find them all, she said. Every last one. The human fleet split. One group escorted the rescued Velnari to neutral sanctuary worlds. Another began sabotage, not of weapons but of lies. They hacked Cathari propaganda feeds and replaced them with truth. Footage of human medics healing Velnari children, of shared meals in refugee camps, of promises kept. The third group, led by Maya Briggs, headed deep into Cathari territory. Their target, a prison moon called Drosk 9, where genetic deviants were held. Among them, human descendants. Maya's heart raced as her ship neared the moon. She thought of her own parents lost so long ago. If even one child survived because someone showed kindness, it was worth every risk. As the Dawn Chaser slipped past orbital defenses, she received a message from Jason. Just 2 words. For Mira. She replied with 3, for all of them. The galaxy watched, stunned. Humans weren't just repaying a debt. They were rewriting the rules. Strength wasn't about how much you could destroy. It was about how much you were willing to protect, and humanity was protecting everyone who once protected them. No one saw the next move coming. Not even the Cathari, because the humans weren't done. Not by far. Far's fair. The prison moon Drosk 9 hung in the void like a rusted nail driven into space. Its surface was pitted with towers, guard posts, and deep underground labs where the Cathari conducted their darkest work. Officially, it held criminals and rebels. Unofficially, it held experiments, failed ones, and among them human descendants. Maya Briggs guided the Dawn Chaser through a debris field left by an old mining accident. The cover was perfect. Cathari sensors saw only junk. Not a ship, not a threat. She moved slow, patient like a shadow slipping through cracks. Inside the moon, Mira Cole sat in a dim cell, her wrists marked with old injection scars. She was 28, with dark eyes that held too much memory for her age. She'd been taken from her Velnari foster family at 12, labeled genetic anomaly because her blood still carried traces of old Earth resilience. The Cathari wanted to understand why humans healed faster, why their minds adapted so quickly to stress, why their bodies resisted alien diseases. They cut, they tested, they recorded, but human DNA fought back in strange ways. It twisted, it broke. It killed the test subjects. Mira had survived only because her body changed just enough to confuse the machines, not enough to kill her. She never expected rescue. She'd given up hope years ago, but high above, Maya's drones mapped the facility. Thermal scans showed hundreds of life signs, mostly weak, some fading. She found Mira's cell near the old medical wing. The plan was simple: cut power, open cells, extract survivors, leave before alarms could spread. At exactly 0300 ship time, she struck. Lights flickered out across Drosk 9. Security doors hissed open. Confused shouts echoed in the halls. Maya's team, 6 humans in stealth suits, moved like wind through the corridors. They carried no guns. Only medkits, restraints for guards, and voice emitters that mimicked Cathari commands to cause chaos. Mira heard the commotion. Then a soft knock on her cell door. It slid open. A human woman stood there, face half hidden by a visor, eyes kind. Mira Cole? Maya asked. Mira froze. No one had said her real name in over a decade. We're getting you out, Maya said, offering a hand. Mira took it. Her legs shook, but she stood. As they moved through the halls, other prisoners emerged, Velnari elders, Zorathi dissidents, even a few confused Cathari deserters. All had helped humans once. All were being punished for it. Maya's team guided them to hidden shuttles waiting in maintenance tunnels. But in the deepest lab, Maya found something worse. Rows of glass tubes. Inside floated small forms, children. Human Velnari hybrids created by Cathari scientists trying to force the two species to merge. Most were dead. A few still breathed barely. Maya's hands clenched. She activated an emergency beacon. Jason, we've got live subjects, kids, they need help now. Minutes later, medical frigates folded in near the moon's dark side. Human doctors rushed in, gentle and fast. They didn't judge. They didn't hesitate. They saved who they could. Back on the Iron Promise, Jason held his niece for the first time in 20 years. She was thin, scarred, but alive. He didn't speak. Just held her tight, tears silent on his face. Later, in the ship's medbay, a scientist named Dr. Paul Finch reviewed the Cathari files. What he found chilled him. The Cathari believed human biology was the key to creating perfect soldiers. But every attempt failed. Human cells rejected forced changes. They mutated in unpredictable ways. One test subject grew extra bone spurs. Another's nervous system overloaded and shut down. The very thing that made humans seem weak, their adaptability, their fragility, was also what made them impossible to control. Humans aren't broken, Paul told Jason. They're wild. Like fire, you can't cage it. You can only respect it. The news spread, not through broadcasts but through whispers, in bars on neutral worlds and hidden chat rooms and coded messages between freighters. The Cathari tried to copy humans, and it killed them. That truth hit harder than any weapon. On Earth, Elena Ruiz received a message from the Morel, a species of deep space dwellers who rarely spoke to outsiders. They offered safe passage through their hidden wormhole network. For the Star Children, the message read. We remember your songs. Even the Zorathi sent more than supplies this time. They sent fighters, small, fast, and deadly, to scout ahead of human ships. We owe you nothing, their commander said over comms. But we choose to stand with you. The Cathari, once confident, now panicked. Their allies questioned their strength. Their soldiers whispered about ghosts in the dark. Ships that appeared, saved the helpless, and vanished without a trace. Morale dropped. Desertions rose. But the Cathari High Command refused to back down. They gathered their largest fleet yet, over 200 warships, and set a course for Earth. They would end this once and for all. Crush the humans before their kindness infected the rest of the galaxy. They believed Earth would beg, or run. They were wrong. Because while the Cathari prepared for war, humanity prepared for something else. Proof. Elena Ruiz didn't order her fleet to defend Earth. She ordered them to gather evidence. Every act of mercy, every name, every life saved. She compiled it into a single data packet and sent it to every species in the Concord, even enemies. We do not seek war, the message said, but we will not let kindness be forgotten. As the Cathari Armada moved toward the Sol system, something unexpected happened. The Zorathi blocked their path, not with weapons but with a wall of freighters, all broadcasting the human data packet on open channels. Behind them, Morel ships opened wormholes not for attack but for escape routes, for anyone who wanted to leave the Cathari fleet. Then came the final blow. A former Cathari vassal world, Tarnus, declared independence. Their leader, a young woman named Rhea, stood before the galaxy and said, We watched humans repay a debt with honor. We will not serve those who punish mercy. One by one, other worlds followed. The Cathari fleet slowed, confused, divided. And in that moment of doubt, the human fleet arrived. Not to fight, but to stand. Jason Cole's voice echoed across all channels, calm and clear. Lay down your arms. Free your prisoners. End this. The galaxy held its breath for the first time. The Cathari weren't feared. They were alone. And humanity, once broken, now stood not as conquerors, but as keepers of a promise that changed everything. Part 5. The Cathari Armada hung in the void near the edge of Sol system, a forest of steel and fire. 200 warships, engines humming with rage, weapons charged, ready to burn Earth back into silence. Their commander, High Marshal Vrax stood on the bridge of his flagship, eyes locked on the blue-green dot in the distance. He expected fear. He expected surrender. He got neither. Instead, he saw ships, not just human ones. Zorathi fighters flanked the human cruisers like silver wings. Morel vessels shimmered in and out of wormholes, forming a ring around the Kethari fleet. Even former vassal worlds sent small squadrons not to fight but to bear witness. The galaxy had come to watch what humanity would do next. Jason Cole stood on the bridge of the Iron Promise, calm as stone. He didn't order weapons hot. He didn't raise his voice. He simply opened a channel, all channels, and spoke to every ship within range. The Kethari have a choice, he said. Release every prisoner. Restore Velnari lands. Shut down the labs. Do this and no one dies today. Vrax laughed over the comm. You think words scare us? We will crush your world and salt your skies. Jason didn't argue. He just nodded to his science officer. Activate the pulse. Deep in the belly of the Iron Promise, a device hummed to life. It wasn't a bomb. It wasn't a beam. It was a harmonic resonator, tuned to the exact frequency of Kethari neural implants. The chips every Kethari soldier and officer wore to link with their ships. The humans had studied captured tech for years. They knew how it worked, and they knew how to shut it down, gently. A soft wave of energy rolled through space, invisible, silent, harmless to organic life. But to the Kethari fleet, it was like pulling the plug on a dream. Every ship went dark. Not exploded, not damaged, just quiet. Engines stopped. Weapons powered down. Life support stayed on, but control was gone. Crews stumbled, confused, as their implants went silent. No pain, no harm. Just sudden, total helplessness. Vrax stared at his dead console, mouth open. What is this? Jason's voice returned, calm as before. We could have killed you, but we don't want your lives. We want your word. On Earth, Elena Ruiz watched from the command center. She didn't cheer. She didn't smile. She just whispered, "It's done." Across the fleet, human shuttles launched, not with soldiers but with medics and diplomats. They boarded Kethari ships not as conquerors but as helpers. They handed out water, checked on crews, and explained what had happened. "You're safe," they said. "Just stand down." One by one, Kethari captains surrendered, not out of fear of death but out of shame. They had come to destroy a broken species. Instead, they found a people who remembered kindness and repaid it with grace. The prisoners came next. Hundreds of them. Velnari elders, human descendants, Zorathi rebels, all freed, wrapped in warm blankets, given food and care. Mira Cole stood among the rescuers now, her scars hidden under a clean uniform, helping others who had suffered like she did. Lyra Tan, now an official liaison between humans and Velnari, addressed the conquered from the deck of the Iron Promise. She spoke in simple words, her voice steady. The humans did not take revenge. They kept a promise, and in doing so, they showed us what strength really is. The galaxy listened, and for the first time in centuries, many felt hope. In the weeks that followed, the Kethari Dominion crumbled, not from war, but from within. Worlds broke away, soldiers refused orders. The High Command lost control. The conquered, once hesitant, stepped in to oversee peace talks. And at the center of it all stood Earth, not demanding power but offering partnership. Elena Ruiz made one final request. Not for territory, not for weapons, but for a memorial. On Mars, near the ruins of New Ares City, they built a garden. In it stood a simple stone wall carved with names, Velnari, Zorathi, Mirel, and others, who had helped humans in their darkest hour. Beside it, a second wall waited empty. For those who will help others tomorrow, the plaque read. Maya Briggs visited often. She'd sit quietly, sometimes with Lyra, sometimes alone. She never spoke much, but she always left a small flower at the base of the wall. Jason Cole returned to Fleet Command, but his heart was lighter. Mira stayed with him, not as a rescued child, but as a fellow officer. She trained new recruits, teaching them not just tactics, but why they fought. We fight to protect, she'd say. Not to win. Years passed. Human ships still sailed the stars, but now they were welcomed, not watched. Young aliens studied Earth history, not for its wars, but for its promises kept. And whenever a species was in trouble, persecuted, hunted, forgotten, rumor would spread. Tell the humans. They remember. The galaxy never forgot that day at the edge of Sol System. not because of explosions or battles, but because of silence. The silence of a fleet that could have destroyed but chose not to. The silence of a people who had every reason to hate but chose to honor. Fear still existed in the stars. But now it had a new name. Not fear of human weapons or human rage, but fear of what humans would do for their friends. Fear of a debt repaid. Fear of kindness that never fades. And in that fear, the galaxy found something rare. Respect. For humanity had proven the oldest truth in the universe, that the strongest force is not fire, but memory. And the deepest power is not in taking, but in giving back. The stars shone a little brighter after that.